So let's talk about something that's quietly starting to shake up the entire world of AI. It's a big idea called the Codatta Shift. But what on earth is that? Well, it's a totally new way to think about the very fuel that powers artificial intelligence, the data itself. And look, we're not just talking about a small software update or some minor tweak here. What we're looking at is a massive foundational change that could literally alter the path of the whole field. How AI learns is about to get a serious rethink. Okay, so let's get right into it. For years, the playbook for making AI smarter seemed pretty straightforward, right? Just feed it more data and throw more powerful computers at the problem. But that whole strategy, it's hitting a wall. Progress is actually slowing down, and that old brute force method just isn't giving us the big breakthroughs anymore. And this brings us right to our first big idea, what some are calling the AI data wall. It's really all about facing the limits of that brute force approach we've been relying on for so long. You know that core belief that bigger is always better? That bigger data sets just automatically lead to smarter models? Well, that idea is really starting to crumble. We're seeing diminishing returns, where doubling the data doesn't get you anywhere close to doubling the smarts. The industry is waking up to the reality that you can't just scale your way out of every problem. So to really get this, we need to look back at that old way of doing things. That brings us to section 2, where we're going to dig into the old paradigm, what you could call a strategy of more. I mean, the foundation of this old way was simple, and for a while, it worked incredibly well. It was all about size. Everything was about scale, bigger models fed by more and more data, running on more and more powerful computers. The entire strategy was built on one idea: quantity is king. But as we're all seeing, that's not the whole story, which brings us to the exciting part, the solution. Section 3, the shift. And this is where things get really interesting, because the focus completely changes from sheer volume to two powerful new keywords: meaning and structure. This really gets to the heart of it right here. The old way was about hoarding volume, and you just kind of had to accept all the noise and junk data that came along for the ride. The new paradigm, it just flips that completely on its head. It's about prioritizing the meaning inside the data and then building a smart, deliberate structure around it. And that boils down to the first core principle of this whole shift. Meaning is better than volume. It sounds so simple, but it's a huge deal. It's quality over quantity. It's not about finding the most data anymore. It's about finding the best data, the stuff that really teaches the model something important. And the second principle follows right on its heels. A proper structure beats noise. This is just as critical. It means that well-organized, clean, intentionally designed data is way, way more valuable than a giant, chaotic mess of information. It's about being an architect with your data, not just a collector. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually do it? How do you put it into practice? That's what Section 4 is all about. We're going to look at a new data framework, basically the tools you need to make this shift a reality. The whole framework kicks off with 4 new guiding paradigms. Think of these as new philosophies for how you approach data. So, for instance, one paradigm might be to stop treating data like a raw material you just scrape up and start treating it like a product you have to carefully design and refine. And to make those new ways of thinking work, the framework also introduces 4 specific data types to build with. So instead of just grabbing raw text off the internet, we're talking about using things like structured knowledge graphs, or maybe even high-quality synthetic data that's custom-built for a very specific training job. And when you put these two pieces together, the 4 new ways of thinking and the 4 new kinds of data, you suddenly have a clear, actionable roadmap for building the next generation of AI. This is how you take that meaning and structure idea from a concept and turn it into something real. All right, so why does all this matter so much right now? Let's zoom out in our final section and talk about the road to AGI and why this shift is happening with so much urgency. This isn't just an academic debate. This shift has direct, real-world consequences. So who needs to be paying close attention? The creators, the builders, the researchers. Honestly, if you work with AI models in any capacity, this is going to directly impact your future, no doubt about it. Because the ultimate destination here, the goal that the entire field is racing towards, is achieving AGI, artificial general intelligence. And the core argument here is that this new, smarter data strategy isn't just a better way to get there, it might be the only way to get there. So we'll wrap up with the critical question that this entire shift puts on the table, one that everyone in this field should be asking themselves. Is your data strategy built for volume, or is it truly built for meaning?